The station called Verdant Ring floated in the darkness of space like a giant wheel made of metal and glass. It spun slowly around a small green planet that had no name, only a number. The station served as a medical outpost for the Galactic Union, a place where sick and injured creatures from across the galaxy could receive care. Hundreds of species worked there together, though they did not always understand each other. Danny Marsh was one of only 3 humans on the entire station. He worked the night shift in the xenobiology wing, which was a fancy way of saying he helped take care of alien animals. Most nights were quiet. He would clean enclosures, prepare food for the creatures, and assist the doctors when they needed an extra pair of hands. It was simple work, but Danny liked it. He had always been good with animals, even the strange ones. Tonight, the wing was peaceful. The lights had been dimmed to help the patients rest. Danny walked down the long corridor, checking on each enclosure as he passed. In one, a 6-legged grazer slept on a bed of soft moss. Its broken leg had been set in a special cast that glowed faintly blue. In another enclosure, a creature that looked like a glowing eel swam in lazy circles through a tank of warm water. It was being treated for parasites and seemed much healthier than when it had arrived. Danny stopped at each window and made notes on his tablet. He wrote down what he saw, how the creatures were behaving, and whether they had eaten their food. It was boring work to most people, but Danny found it calming. There was something honest about animals. They did not lie or pretend. If they were scared, they showed it. If they were happy, they showed that too. At the end of the corridor, he found Dr. Velith waiting for him. She was a sirene, a species that looked something like a very tall insect standing on 2 legs. Her body was covered in a hard shell the color of dark copper, and her face had large compound eyes that reflected the dim light like 2 pools of oil. She had 4 arms, each ending in delicate fingers that could perform surgery with perfect precision. Dr. Velith was the head veterinarian of the xenobiology wing. She was very good at her job, but she was also very cautious. She treated Danny with polite distance, the way someone might treat a large dog that had not yet proven itself friendly. Danny understood why. Humans were still new to the Galactic Union. They had only made contact with alien life about 50 years ago, and most species were still trying to figure them out. The problem was that Earth had been classified as a death world, a planet where everything seemed designed to kill its inhabitants. Other species found this deeply unsettling. To aliens, humans were strange and somewhat frightening. They came from a world filled with predators, venomous creatures, extreme weather, and diseases that could adapt and spread. And yet humans had survived all of it. They had not only survived but thrived. They had climbed to the top of their food chain through a combination of endurance, cleverness, and a stubborn refusal to die. Dr. Velith clicked her mandibles softly as Danny approached. It was a sign of mild discomfort. "The grazer is healing well," Danny said, keeping his voice calm and friendly. "And the eel has been eating again." "Good," Dr. Velith replied. Her voice was high and precise, like the sound of wind chimes. "You may proceed with the standard evening checks. I will be in my office if you need me." She turned and walked away, her forearms folded neatly behind her back. Danny watched her go and felt a small pang of sadness. He wished she would trust him more. But he knew that trust took time. He had been on the station for almost a year, and some of the staff still looked at him like he might bite. He continued his rounds, moving through the quieter sections of the wing. Most of the enclosures were empty at this hour. The station had been slow lately, which was a good thing. It meant fewer creatures were getting hurt. Near the back of the wing, Danny found Cora sitting at a monitoring station. She was a Telvanni, a species that resembled a small bird covered in soft gray feathers. Her eyes were large and golden, and they watched Danny with open curiosity as he approached. Cora was young, still in training to become a full nurse. She was also one of the few aliens on the station who seemed genuinely interested in humans. She asked Danny questions constantly, wanting to know about Earth, about human food, about human music. Danny did not mind. He liked her curiosity. "Hello, Danny," Cora said, her voice soft and musical. Quiet night? So far, Danny replied. He leaned against the wall and crossed his arms. How are the readings? One readings is numb. All normal. Cora tilted her head, a gesture that made her look like a curious sparrow. Danny, may I ask you something? Sure. Why do humans volunteer for jobs like this? Working with dangerous creatures, I mean. Most species avoid such work. Danny thought about the question. It was a fair one. The xenobiology wing sometimes received creatures that could kill a person in seconds. Just last month, they had treated a venomous serpent from a jungle planet that had fangs as long as Danny's hand. Someone has to help the scared ones, he said finally. And I guess humans are used to being around dangerous things. We grew up with them. Cora's feathers ruffled slightly, a sign of surprise. You do not fear them? Oh, I fear them plenty, Danny said with a small smile. But fear and respect can exist together. You can be afraid of something and still want to help it. Before Cora could respond, an alarm began to blare through the wing. Red lights flashed along the ceiling. Danny straightened immediately, his muscles tensing. A voice came over the intercom, speaking in the flat tone of the station's computer. Emergency alert. Incoming transport with critical patient. All xenobiology staff report to receiving Bay 7. Classification, Code Hunter. Repeat, Code Hunter. Cora's feathers went flat against her skull. Her golden eyes went wide with fear. Danny had never heard that classification before. Code Hunter? What does that mean? Cora's voice came out as a whisper. It means they are bringing a Vorax. The name meant nothing to Danny. But the terror on Cora's face told him everything he needed to know. Whatever a Vorax was, it was something that made even the bravest aliens afraid. He took a deep breath and started walking toward receiving Bay 7. Behind him, Cora called out in a shaking voice. Danny, wait. You do not understand. Vorax are hunters. They are monsters. Danny paused at the door and looked back at her. His face was calm, but his heart was beating faster now. Then I guess we better go help, he said, and he walked through the door into the flashing red light beyond. Danny had never seen the station move so fast. By the time he reached receiving Bay 7, the corridor was already filled with security officers in heavy armor. They carried weapons that hummed with energy, their faces hidden behind dark visors. Medical staff pressed themselves against the walls, trying to stay out of the way while still doing their jobs. Dr. Velith stood at the center of it all, her forearms moving quickly as she gave orders. Her compound eyes reflected the flashing red lights, and her voice was sharp with urgency. Danny had never seen her so tense. Full containment protocols, she commanded. Energy barriers at maximum. No one approaches without my direct order. Danny pushed through the crowd until he reached Cora, who was standing near a monitoring station with her feathers pressed flat against her body. She looked like she wanted to run but was too afraid to move. What exactly is a Vorax? Danny asked quietly. Cora's voice trembled when she answered. They are apex predators from the planet Vorath. 6 limbs, armored hide, venomous fangs. They can see heat, so hiding from them is impossible. They are classified as Class 7 threats by the Galactic Union. What does Class 7 mean? It means they are considered too dangerous to approach under any circumstances. It means that if one escapes, the standard protocol is to evacuate the area and call for military support. Cora looked at Danny with wide, frightened eyes. It means they are monsters, Danny. Living weapons. They call them hunters because that is all they do. They hunt, and they kill. Danny absorbed this information quietly. He had dealt with dangerous animals before, back on Earth. He had worked with wolves, bears, and big cats at a wildlife sanctuary before joining the space program. He knew that reputation and reality were not always the same thing. But he also knew that some creatures really were as dangerous as people said. The doors to the receiving base slid open with a hiss, and everyone went silent. A transport team entered, pushing a large hover stretcher that floated a few feet off the ground. On the stretcher, held down by glowing energy cuffs, was the Vorax. Danny's first thought was that it was smaller than he expected. Based on everyone's fear, he had imagined something the size of a truck, but this creature was maybe 7 feet long from nose to tail, roughly the size of a large tiger. It had 6 legs, each ending in curved claws that looked sharp enough to cut through metal. Its body was covered in dark scales that seemed to shift color slightly as it moved. A ridge of bony spines ran down its back. Its head was the most striking feature. It was shaped like a blend between a wolf and a lizard, with a long snout filled with teeth and 2 eyes that glowed faintly orange. One of those eyes was clouded over, milky white, and clearly blind. The creature was covered in scars. Old burns marked its hide. Patches of scales were missing, revealing pink flesh underneath. It was thin, too thin. With ribs visible beneath its skin, it thrashed weakly against the restraints, but its movements were slow and clumsy. And then Danny heard the sound it was making. It was not a roar. It was not a growl. It was a high-pitched whine, almost like a dog crying. The sound was filled with pain and fear. The security team raised their weapons. Dr. Velith backed away, her mandibles clicking rapidly. "Containment team, ready stun charges," she ordered. "If it breaks free, fire immediately." Danny stepped forward without thinking. He moved past the security officers, past the frightened medical staff, until he was only a few feet from the stretcher. "Human, stop," Dr. Velith called out. "That creature could kill you in seconds." Danny did not stop. He was looking at the Vorax, really looking at it. He saw the way it was curling its body inward, pulling its legs close to its chest. He saw the way it was trembling. He saw the clouded eye and the scars and the ribs showing through its skin. And he understood. "Everyone lower your weapons," he said calmly. The security team did not move. One of them, a large alien with blue skin and tusks, let out a harsh laugh. "Are you insane, human? That thing is a hunter. It will tear your face off." "No, it will not." Danny's voice was steady. "Look at it. Really look. It is not trying to attack. It is trying to protect itself." Dr. Velith's voice was tight with stress. "Danny, I am ordering you to step back. This is not a request." Danny ignored her. He crouched down slowly, making himself smaller. He kept his hands visible and open, showing that he held no weapons. He did not look directly at the Vorax's eyes. Instead, he looked at a spot just below its chin, a submissive gesture that many predators understood. The Vorax's whining grew softer, its orange eye fixed on Danny, watching him with something that might have been confusion. "Hey there," Danny said quietly. His voice was calm and warm, the same voice he had used 1,000 times with frightened animals back on Earth. "Hey, it is okay. Nobody is going to hurt you." The creature's trembling slowed slightly. Behind Danny, the security team exchanged uncertain glances. Dr. Velith's mandibles had stopped clicking. The entire bay had gone silent, except for the soft hum of the energy restraints. Danny stayed exactly where he was, crouched low with his hands open. He kept talking in that same calm voice, saying nothing important. He talked about the color of the walls. He talked about the food he had eaten for dinner. He talked about a bird he had seen once as a child, a cardinal that used to sit on his windowsill every morning. The words did not matter. What mattered was the tone. Soft, steady, unthreatening. The Vorax stopped thrashing completely. Its whine faded to a low, rumbling sound. It was still watching Danny, but the fear in its eye had changed to something else. Curiosity, maybe. Or hope. Cora's voice was barely a whisper. "What is he doing?" Dr. Velith did not answer. She was staring at Danny with an expression that might have been fear or wonder, or both. Danny did not move from his spot. He stayed there, crouched on the floor, speaking softly to a creature that everyone else in the galaxy considered a monster. And slowly, impossibly, the monster began to calm down. The transport team leader, a nervous-looking alien with too many eyes, spoke into his communicator. "Control. This is Bay 7. You are not going to believe what is happening down here. Danny heard him but did not look away from the Vorax. The creature needed his attention right now. Everything else could wait. It is okay, he said again, almost to himself. You are safe now. I promise. The Vorax let out a long, shuddering breath and closed its one good eye. For the first time since it had arrived, it stopped fighting. Nobody in receiving Base 7 dared to move. The security team stood frozen with their weapons still raised, unsure what to do. Dr. Velith had taken several steps backward and pressed herself against the far wall, her forearms wrapped tightly around her body. Even the monitoring equipment seemed to be holding its breath. Danny remained crouched on the floor, his eyes soft and his hands open. The Vorax lay on the hover stretcher before him, its massive body still trembling slightly, but no longer fighting. Its one good eye was half closed, watching Danny with something that looked almost like exhaustion. Dr. Velith, Danny said without turning around, I need you to lower the restraint field around its head. The silence that followed was so complete that Danny could hear his own heartbeat. Absolutely not, Dr. Velith finally replied. Her voice was higher than usual, tight with fear. That creature is a Class 7 predator. If it gets free, it will kill everyone in this room. It is not going to hurt anyone, Danny said calmly. Look at it. It is exhausted and scared, and probably in a lot of pain. The restraints are making it worse. If you want this animal to stay calm, I need to be able to reach it. You want to touch it? The security officer with tusks sounded like he could not believe what he was hearing. Human. That thing has venomous fangs. One bite, and you are dead. Danny finally looked away from the Vorax, turning his head just enough to meet the officer's eyes. I know what I am doing. I have worked with dangerous animals my whole life. This one is not hunting. It is not even defending itself. It is waiting to die. The words hung in the air. Cora made a small sound of distress, her feathers ruffling. Dr. Velith's compound eyes studied Danny for a long moment. Then she looked at the Vorax. Really looked at it the way Danny had asked. She saw the scars. She saw the missing scales and the clouded eye. She saw how thin it was, how weak, and she saw that it had stopped fighting. Lower the head restraint, she said quietly. The security officer started to protest, but Dr. Velith cut him off with a sharp click of her mandibles. I gave an order. Do it now. But keep the body restraints active. If the creature attacks, stun it immediately. The officer grumbled something under his breath but obeyed. There was a soft hum as the energy field around the Vorax's head flickered and disappeared. Danny took a slow breath. This was the moment that mattered. He had talked the talk, and now he had to prove he could walk the walk. He began to move forward, sliding across the floor on his knees. He kept his movements slow and smooth, nothing sudden or jerky. He continued talking in that same calm voice, letting the sound wash over the creature like warm water. There you go, he said softly. See? Nothing scary. I am just a strange little ape who wants to help. I know you have been through something terrible. I can see it on you. All those scars. Someone hurt you badly, did they not? The Vorax's eye opened wider as Danny got closer. Its nostrils flared, drawing in his scent. A low rumble built in its throat, somewhere between a growl and a purr. Behind Danny, someone gasped. He heard the click of weapons being readied. Easy, Danny said, and he was not sure if he was talking to the creature or to the security team. Everybody, just stay easy. He was close enough now to feel the heat coming off the Vorax's body. This close, he could see details he had missed before. The creature's scales were not just dark, they had a faint pattern of stripes that shifted in the light. Its teeth, visible behind pulled-back lips, were as long as his fingers and wickedly sharp. Its breath smelled like copper and something else. Something wild. Danny reached out his hand, palm up, and held it a few inches from the Vorax's snout. He let the creature examine him. He let it smell his skin, his sweat, his fear. Because yes, he was afraid. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat, but he did not let the fear control him. That was the secret. Fear was natural. Fear was healthy. Fear kept you sharp and careful. But if you let fear make your decisions, you would never help anyone. The Vorax sniffed his hand. Its whiskers, thin and wire-like, brushed against his palm. The rumble in its throat changed pitch, becoming softer, and then, very slowly, it pressed its snout against Danny's hand. The skin was warm and surprisingly smooth, like sun-heated leather. Danny felt the creature exhale, a long breath that seemed to release tension from its entire body. "There you go," Danny whispered. "See? I am not so bad." He moved his hand up, gently scratching the scales just above the Vorax's nose. The creature's eye closed completely. The rumble in its throat became a deep, steady vibration that Danny felt through his whole arm. It was purring. Behind him, he heard Cora's voice, filled with wonder. "It is purring. The hunter is purring. Call. Call. Call." Dr. Velith stepped forward slowly, her movements careful and precise. She stopped several feet away, not willing to get any closer, but her compound eyes were fixed on Danny and the Vorax, with an expression that was hard to read. "How are you doing this?" she asked. "That creature should be trying to kill you. Every piece of data we have says that Vorax are pure predators. They do not bond. They do not show affection. They only hunt." Danny kept scratching the creature's snout, not looking away from it. "Maybe your data is wrong. Or maybe the Vorax you studied were not given a reason to behave any other way." "What do you mean?" "I mean that no animal is born a monster." Danny's voice was still soft, but there was something harder underneath it now. "Monsters are made. Someone took this one from its home. Someone put it in a cage. Someone hurt it, over and over again, until all it knew was pain and fear. And now everyone is surprised that it acts dangerous." He finally looked at Dr. Velith, meeting her compound eyes with his own. "It is not a monster. It is a victim. And right now, for maybe the first time in its life, someone is showing it kindness instead of cruelty." The Vorax shifted on the stretcher, pressing closer to Danny's hand. Its tail, still held down by the energy restraints, twitched weakly. Dr. Velith was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to the security team. "Lower your weapons," she said quietly. "All of you. Lower them now." The officer with tusks started to argue, but something in Dr. Velith's voice stopped him. One by one, the security team lowered their guns. Danny let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. The hardest part was over. Now came the real work. "It needs medical attention," he said. "Those burns look infected, and I think some of its bones might be broken. Can you help it?" Dr. Velith looked at the Vorax, then at Danny. Something changed in her expression. A shift from fear to something that might have been respect. "Yes," she said slowly. "I believe we can." She stepped forward, still cautious but no longer terrified. The Vorax's eye opened at her approach, but Danny was there, murmuring soft words and keeping his hand on its snout. "It is okay," he told the creature. "She is going to help you, I promise." The Vorax rumbled once, then closed its eye again. It had decided to trust him. And in that moment, in a crowded receiving bay filled with frightened aliens and armed guards, Danny Marsh made a new friend. The hours that followed were long and difficult. Dr. Velith worked carefully over the Vorax's body, her 4 hands moving with surgical precision as she cleaned wounds, set broken bones, and treated infections. The creature lay still through most of it, only flinching occasionally when the pain became too much. Danny stayed beside it the entire time. His knees ached from kneeling on the hard floor, and his arm was tired from keeping his hand on the creature's snout. But he did not move. Every time the Vorax started to tense up, he would speak softly to it, and the tension would fade away. Cora assisted Dr. Velith, handing her tools and monitoring the creature's vital signs. Her feathers had smoothed out over the past hour, the fear slowly being replaced by fascination. She kept glancing at Danny, as if trying to understand how any of this was possible. "The damage is extensive, Doctor," Velith said as she worked. Her voice had lost its sharpness and become thoughtful, almost sad. "Burns from energy weapons. Cuts from what appear to be fighting matches. Malnutrition. This creature has been systematically abused for what looks like most of its life." "Where did it come from?" Danny asked. "The transport ship that brought it here was captured by a Union patrol near the Outer Rim. It was a smuggling vessel." "Doctor." Velith paused, her mandibles clicking softly. "The crew was trafficking in illegal goods. Weapons, drugs, and exotic animals. This one was found in a cage barely large enough for it to turn around. The crew claimed they were going to sell it to a fighting ring." Danny felt anger rise in his chest, hot and sharp. He looked at the Vorax, at its scars and its clouded eye and its thin body. And he felt something that went beyond simple sympathy. He felt connected to this creature in a way he could not quite explain. "It is a juvenile," Dr. Velith continued. "Based on its size and the development of its spines, I estimate it to be roughly 4 years old. Adults can grow up to 15 feet long. This one was taken young, probably before it could even hunt on its own." Danny thought about that. 4 years of cages and pain. 4 years of being hurt by creatures who saw it as nothing more than a weapon to be bought and sold. It was no wonder the Vorax had been so terrified. "Will it recover?" he asked. Dr. Velith set down her tools and examined her work. The creature's wounds had been cleaned and sealed with medical gel. A soft cast covered one of its front legs, where a bone had been broken. Tubes connected to its body fed it fluids and nutrients. Physically, yes. With proper care, it should make a full recovery within a few weeks. She hesitated. "Mentally, I am not sure. Vorax are not supposed to bond with other species. All the research says they are solitary predators with no capacity for social connection. But this one seems to have attached itself to you." As if to prove her point, the Vorax shifted slightly and pressed its snout more firmly against Danny's hand. The rumbling purr in its throat grew louder. Danny smiled despite his exhaustion. Maybe the research was done on the wrong Vorax. They moved the creature to a recovery enclosure, a large room with soft padding on the floor and temperature controls to match its home planet. Danny helped transfer it from the stretcher to the floor, where it immediately curled up into a tight ball with its tail wrapped around its body. "You should rest," Dr. Velith told him. "You have been awake for almost 16 hours. I want to stay with it for a while longer, just until it falls asleep." Dr. Velith studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. But do not exhaust yourself. The creature will need you healthy in the days ahead." She left the enclosure, followed by most of the medical staff. Only Cora remained, standing near the door with her golden eyes fixed on Danny. "May I stay?" she asked softly. Danny nodded. "Of course." She settled onto the floor a few feet away, folding her legs beneath her in a way that made her look like a small gray bird nesting. For a while, neither of them spoke. The only sounds were the soft hum of the medical equipment and the steady rumble of the Vorax's breathing. Finally, Cora broke the silence. "How did you know?" Danny looked at her. "Know what? How did you know it would not attack you? When you first approached it, everyone was certain you were going to die. Even I was certain. But you walked right up to it like you had nothing to fear." Danny thought about the question. It was hard to put into words, the instinct that had guided him. But Cora deserved an answer. "Predators do not act aggressive for fun," he said slowly. "They do it because they have a reason. Usually, one of 3 reasons. They are hungry and see you as food. They are protecting their territory, or their young, or they are scared and feel threatened." He looked at the Vorax, which had closed its eye and seemed to be drifting toward sleep. This one was not hunting. It was too weak for that. It was not protecting anything because it had nothing to protect. That only left fear, and scared animals do not attack unless they feel like they have no other choice. "But how did you know it would not choose to attack you?" "Because I did not give it a reason to." Danny shifted his position, stretching his tired legs. "I made myself small and non-threatening. I did not make direct eye contact. I spoke in a calm voice and moved slowly. I showed it that I was not a threat. Cora's feathers ruffled slightly. It sounds so simple when you explain it. It is simple. In theory. The hard part is staying calm when every instinct in your body is telling you to run. Danny smiled a little. Believe me. I was terrified. My heart was beating so fast I thought it might explode, but I could not let the fear show. Animals can sense fear, and it makes them more afraid. Were you not worried about being wrong? About the creature attacking despite your precautions? Danny was quiet for a moment. Yes, he admitted. There is always risk when you work with dangerous animals. You can do everything right and still get hurt. But I decided a long time ago that I would rather take that risk than let a scared creature suffer alone. Cora considered this. Humans are very strange, she said finally. Danny laughed softly. I have heard that before. I do not mean it as an insult. It is just that most species would not do what you did. Most species would see a predator like that and only think about protecting themselves. But you saw it and wanted to protect it instead. That is because I remember what it is like to be scared, Danny said. Humans are not the biggest, or the strongest, or the fastest creatures. On our planet, we spent a long time being hunted by things with bigger teeth and sharper claws. We learned how to survive, but we never forgot the fear. And I think that fear taught us something important. What? Danny looked at the Vorax, now sleeping peacefully for perhaps the first time in years. It taught us that everyone deserves kindness. Even the things with claws. Maybe especially the things with claws, because they are the ones that everyone else is too afraid to help. Cora was silent for a long moment. Then she stood up and walked closer, settling down beside Danny. Her shoulder almost touched his. I think I understand now, she said softly. Why humans survived on a death world. It was not because you were stronger than the predators. It was because you learned to see them as something other than enemies. Danny nodded slowly. Something like that. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the Vorax sleep. The station continued its slow rotation through space. But inside that small room, something had changed. A bridge had been built between predator and prey, between alien and human, and it had been built with nothing more than patience and kindness. 3 weeks passed on Verdant Ring. And in that time, everything changed. The Vorax healed faster than anyone expected. Its wounds closed cleanly, leaving fresh scars to join the old ones. Its broken leg mended. And soon it was walking again, with only a slight limp. It started eating properly, and its ribs disappeared beneath healthy muscle. Even its clouded eye seemed to clear slightly. Though Dr. Velith said the damage was too old to fully reverse, Danny visited the creature every day, sometimes for hours at a time. He brought it food and water. He talked to it about nothing and everything, his calm voice filling the recovery enclosure. And slowly, day by day, the Vorax began to change. It was not just physical healing. The fear that had gripped it so tightly began to loosen. It stopped flinching at sudden sounds. It stopped curling into a defensive ball whenever someone approached. It even started to play, batting at toys that Danny brought and chasing beams of light across the floor like an enormous cat. Danny named it Slate, after the dark gray color of its scales. The name stuck, spreading through the station until everyone was using it. The terrifying hunter had become just Slate, the rescued animal in the xenobiology wing. But the really surprising thing was what happened when Danny was not around. At first, Slate refused to eat unless Danny was present. He would just lie in his enclosure, staring at the door, waiting. The medical staff tried everything. They offered different types of food. They adjusted the temperature. They played recordings of Danny's voice. Nothing worked. Then one day, Cora had an idea. She entered the enclosure alone, moving slowly and keeping her voice soft, just like she had watched Danny do. She sat down on the floor several feet away from Slate and simply waited. For almost an hour, nothing happened. Slate watched her with his orange eye. Not threatening but not welcoming either. Cora stayed still, patient, calm, and then, slowly, Slate uncurled himself and walked over to her. He sniffed her feathers. He pressed his snout against her hand, and when she offered him food, he ate. Word spread quickly after that. The human's technique could be learned. Other staff members began trying it, approaching Slate with soft voices and gentle movements. Not all of them succeeded. Some species were simply too nervous, and Slate could sense their fear. But enough succeeded that the impossible became routine. A Vorax, one of the most feared predators in the galaxy, was allowing aliens to touch him, to feed him, to care for him. The news reached beyond Verdant Ring. Other stations heard about it. Scientific journals published articles about it. Messages came flooding in from across the Galactic Union, asking questions and requesting information. How had the human done it? Was it some kind of psychic ability? A pheromone that affected predators? A secret technique from the death world called Earth? Dr. Velith was asked to write an official report for the Galactic Union Xenobiology Council. She spent days working on it, trying to put into words what she had witnessed. The final document was long and detailed, filled with medical data and behavioral observations. But the part that everyone remembered came at the very end. She wrote, "Humans are an enigma. They evolved on a world that should have killed them, surrounded by predators, poisons, diseases, and natural disasters that would destroy any other species. And yet they did not merely survive. They thrived. They became the dominant species on their planet. They built civilizations and developed technology that eventually carried them to the stars. By all logic, they should be hardened and brutal, shaped by their harsh environment into merciless survivalists. But they are not. When presented with a creature that every other species in the galaxy considers a deadly threat, the human's first instinct was not to destroy it. It was to comfort it. They possess a quality that I struggle to define. Perhaps it is empathy. Perhaps it is madness. Perhaps there is no difference. All I know is that I have spent my entire career studying the creatures of this galaxy, and I have never encountered anything quite like a human." Danny read the report a few days after it was published. He was sitting in Slate's enclosure at the time, with the massive predator curled around him like a living blanket. Slate's tail was wrapped loosely around Danny's ankle, and his head rested on Danny's lap. Every few minutes, the creature let out a deep, rumbling purr that vibrated through Danny's entire body. Cora was there too, sitting nearby, and reading the report on her own tablet. Her feathers had fluffed up with what Danny had learned to recognize as amusement. "You are famous now," she said. "The human who tamed a hunter." Danny laughed softly. "I did not tame anything. Slate is not tame. He is just not afraid anymore. There is a difference, a big one." Danny scratched behind Slate's ear, and the purring grew louder. "Taming means making something obey you, breaking its will until it does what you want. That is not what happened here. Slate chooses to trust me. He chooses to be calm. He could attack me any time he wanted, but he does not, because he knows I am not a threat." Cora thought about this. "So it is not control, it is trust." "Exactly. And trust has to go both ways. I trust him too. I trust that he will not hurt me unless he has a good reason. And because we trust each other, we can be friends." Slate opened his one good eye and looked up at Danny. The orange glow was soft now, warm instead of threatening. Danny could have sworn the creature understood what he was saying. "The council is talking about changing the classification of Vorax," Cora said. "Some members want to downgrade them from Class 7 based on what happened here." "That would be a mistake," Danny said immediately. Cora's feathers ruffled in surprise. "Why? You showed that they can be peaceful." "I showed that this one can be peaceful. With this particular approach, in these particular circumstances." Danny's voice was serious now. "Slate is still a dangerous predator. He could kill me with one bite if he wanted to. The fact that he chooses not to does not make him safe. It makes him a wild animal that has decided to trust me. There is a huge difference." He looked at Cora with steady eyes. "Respect is not the same as dismissal. Just because I care about Slate does not mean I forget what he is capable of. That would be dangerous for both of us. Cora nodded slowly, understanding. So the lesson is not that Vorax are harmless. The lesson is that they deserve the chance to be something other than monsters. Exactly, Danny smiled. Every creature deserves that chance. Even the scary ones. Maybe especially the scary ones. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The three of them. Human, Telvanni, and Vorax. Sharing a space that should have been impossible. Outside the enclosure, the station continued its endless rotation. Ships came and went. Creatures were healed and released. Life went on in all its strange and wonderful variety. But something had shifted in the way the aliens of Verdant Ring thought about humans. They had always known that humans were tough, that they came from a deadly world and had survival instincts that bordered on insane, but now they understood something else. Humans were not just survivors. They were bridge builders. They had the ability to see past fear, past instinct, past millions of years of predator-prey dynamics, and find connection with creatures that everyone else had given up on. It was a small thing, in some ways. Just one human and one Vorax in a single room on a single station. But word spread, as word always does. Stories were told. Questions were asked. And out in the vast darkness of space, other species began to wonder. If humans could befriend hunters, what else might they be capable of? Danny did not think about any of that. He just sat in the enclosure with his friend, scratching behind Slate's ears and listening to him purr. You know, he said to no one in particular, I think you are going to be okay. Slate rumbled in response and closed his eye, settling deeper into Danny's lap. For the first time in his short, brutal life, the hunter was at peace. And somewhere in the galaxy, the universe itself seemed to take note. Because kindness, it turned out, was the most powerful force in existence, more powerful than claws, more powerful than fear, more powerful than all the weapons and walls that species had built to keep each other out. Just kindness, and the willingness to offer it to those who needed it most.